Hi guys, welcome to Cars and Health Bars. I hope you all had a wonderful week and are ready for a podcast. With that being said, let's get right into it. So it's no secret that Jordan, you are a LS builder, at least you were, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into with the intro. I talked about it a little bit that we want to talk about what it takes to kind of do a deep dive in affordability, reliability, and maybe if you're wanting to make some power or ball on a budget with building LSs. And who better to talk to than somebody that breaks into these for a living.
Yeah, so, the perfect place to start with this is obviously where you would start in real life, the block. It really depends on your application. Do you want to do aluminum or cast iron? And I would say if you're on a budget, cast iron all day. It handles arguably more power. I mean, it's kind of been proven, but more power, and it's a lot cheaper. And, if you mess it up, you can bore it over. You're not going to be, because let's say you got an LS3, LS7, and you mess the bore up and it's not dart and sleeved. You're going to be out a lot of money, because if you mess it up and it's got to go more than 20 over, you're going to have to re-sleeve it. It's not worth the hassle. So that's where I stand on the foundation. We start from the foundation when we do this kind of stuff. So obviously start with the block. If you're on a budget, go cast iron. And then the next thing to look at is going to be your rotating assembly, because that's going to also affect your displacement. Your bore and your rotating assembly are your two big things for making power, because they can really affect where you make power and how you make it. And obviously the cam can too, that ties in with it, and the heads too. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but to start the foundation, you want, balling on a budget. If you want a good rotating assembly, I recommend just buying a whole block from someone, whether it's, out of a running car or at a junkyard, whatever. I would say go find your LQ4 or LQ9, whatever you got. Whatever you find.
What LS are we talking about if we're starting out balling on a budget? What's a good budget LS engine to start out with? Like LS1, LS2, obviously those first two come to mind.
It depends on your budget. I would say there's a few levels to this.
Okay.
And level 1 is really cheap, and, you might just want to pick up a used engine and throw a cam in it. It was running before. You're going to just run it as is with a cam and, springs, lifters, whatever. But so let's say you got $2,000 to spend, right? Or maybe a little more. You're going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to go find whatever engine you can find for $800 to $900, hopefully, that's been running. If you can find one for cheaper, then that's great. If you really want to push the power later down the road, I would recommend a Gen 4 engine, just because you have the nicer rods.
Yeah.
And, just Gen 4 ECUs have a little bit better tuning from what I understand. You got a little more options for tuning, a little bit easier to tune forced induction-wise.
What about the problem? If you went with an LS2, what do you see in the problems with the timing chain tensioner? There's a lot of problems with the LS2. That's kind of my big gripe with it, because it, of course, it also has
LS2. I don't think it has a timing tensioner.
That's not what I'm reading.
I might be wrong, but
and also
I know the LS1 doesn't.
Valve guide wear is a big problem on those engines too, leading to oil consumption.
Valve guide wear? That's on every LS, I would argue.
I'm just going through this list here that I have. Obviously, DOD is a big problem. I mean, as with every Gen 4 LS, they have the DOD failure, and especially in the late models of the LS3 cars, because, of course, I dealt with that firsthand. That's the first thing that went bad in my car was the lifters on the DOD.
I'll tell you what, though, I've never seen a timing guide actually cause major issues in a car. Now, I will say, if you have one break and it goes into a bunch of small pieces, it could go in your pickup tube and cause some damage. But if it's a large piece, which I have seen, it usually just gets in the screen, and it usually As long as you're lucky, it don't, even cause oil pressure issues or nothing. But I'm pretty sure the LS2 doesn't have like a tensioner. It's just got a guide, and it's one solid piece of plastic. I've never seen one break. It's the same as LS3 as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, man, it's just that just seems like there's so many spots that LS's leak oil. It's like LS engine was just meant to be just like a junkyard leaking oil motor, especially with like the oil cooler that you show me on my car, and LS3s also have a oil pan gasket leaks.
I mean, that's every LS. It's
Yeah.
it's common with age, and if you are gonna do the whole nine, I don't know if you're gonna rebearing one if you buy it at a junkyard. You may not, and it's fine if you don't. I would go ahead and regasket the whole thing. Just pan gasket both covers and seals while you're at it, and make sure you RTV the corners. But anyway, getting back to the topic of
Yeah. Picking a block. Yeah.
picking it. So balling on a budget, you're gonna use stock heads. If you got like $2,000 to $3,000, you're probably gonna use stock heads. Maybe you find a set of, I don't know, 243s for a good deal on Marketplace, which you could, because they're not overly expensive like LS3 heads are, arguably.
So I kind of want to get your opinion. I want to pick a block that is the most easy to come by, and that, of course, would be a Gen 3 5.3 truck motor. That has to be the cheapest and easiest way out because you can get those very affordably with a harness. I mean, you can get those for around $1,000 if you're lucky. You might be taking a gamble, but you still have an LS.
Yeah, I would just argue go Gen 4 at that point, because you're probably not going to spend a whole lot more.
Okay, but what if you bought a Gen 3 block a full Gen 3 like turnkey from a junkyard, and you put a Gen 4 bottom end in it?
Well, the problem is you can't do crank. You can only do rod and piston because it has a different reluctor wheel.
Right, but it's still that extra beefier rod you need, especially if you're going boost. I mean, if you're going boost, you need rod.
The problem with that is that you got rebearing it, and you got to spend money in that, and it's more problems. I would rather just buy an engine that's been running. And if you don't want to rebearing it, you don't got to spend money rebearing it, because that's another $200-$300 in bearings and just rod bearings.
I see where you're coming from with that, but it's also that seems to also be the easier way out, to just go ahead and buy the Gen 4. And it's kind of hard to find a Gen 4 in a junkyard compared to a Gen 3, wouldn't you say?
I think we're getting there to where you can find some Gen 4s.
Not LS3s, but definitely 6.0s.
Yeah, you can find truck 6.2s for a good price too. Haney has bought multiple, and that is where I would go. So I would either go really 6.0 if you can afford it.
Yeah.
6.0 is going to be the best iron block
6.0, yep.
Yeah, because then you can throw LS3 heads on it and an LS3 cam and make really close to LS3 numbers. It's just 60 thousandths less bore. And getting back to what else I would do. So when we talk about valve train, cam kits are always in the range of like $1,000 to $1,300. So that's your biggest increase in power from a factory LS is the cam from factory, because the cylinder head is really good. You got a good intake. Really, the limiting factor is the cam on power, and it's real easy. So that's why everyone does it. It's so easy. You can gain 80 horsepower on an LS3, 90 horsepower, even 100 with just a cam.
Yeah, and if you do unfortunately not know what you're doing, and you do pick up a DoD AFM engine, I mean, you're going to do cam and lifters anyways. So I mean, it's kind of redundant.
It don't matter.
Yeah, some people see that as kind of a loss, but it's not really. It's going to fail eventually. I mean, it's just that early like DoD AFM is just it was not there, and if you'd think they would have ironed those problems out.
It wasn't even in Gen 3.
They weren't in Gen 3? They were.
No,
Gen
3's never had DoD.
They were in the
only
Gen 4 LS2s. Oh, okay, I see.
Any Gen 4 engine had DoD unless it was an LS3 or LS7.
Right, the auto cars all had AFM.
Well, not
DoD.
the Corvette.
Oh yeah, that's right. So that they just cheaped out on the truck and Camaro motors then with the L99.
Yeah. Well, it was the L92 in the truck. Only L99 in the Camaro.
Okay.
I don't actually know it was just like a different cam, but it was a L92, not an L99. But if you can, let's say you got a little bit more money to spend, right? Like you got like an old hot rod, right? And you're wanting to dump some money into it. It's got the old worn out 350 in it. Well, the next tier up, so let's say tier 2, and this is what a lot of enthusiasts who, they kind of know a little bit, but they don't know a whole lot. But they've looked around and they seem to come to this consensus, and it's a good one. It's really, I would argue, one of the best ones is find you a 5th-gen Camaro C6 Corvette that's blown up, steal the LS3 and transmission out of it, whether it's auto or manual, and you're gonna have, if it's stock, 400 wheel horsepower, which is probably still as good as your old 350.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how much for sure that you're going to spend on an LS3 and 6L80 combo. Probably about $8 or $9 grand. But let's say you got a little bit more money for a cam kit and maybe some flex fuel, because you're probably getting the harness with that.
Yeah.
And the ECU. So $250 for the E85 kit on top of so you got $1,500 more bucks to spend, right? You can do E85 in a cam, and you're making 500 wheel just about. Well, you probably are in an older car because it's got less rotating mass.
Yep.
In the drivetrain, so you're probably making 500 wheel.
Yeah, that's an easy pull out to get a hold
on
of.
that, because that's what I would do if I had the money for a nice LS swap in a older car, and I didn't want to do like a really crazy setup.
You're saying ideally get a hold of an LS3, basically.
Yeah, or even if you could have LS7, but they're going to run a lot more, and that's more what I would say is the next tier up.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to talk about the LS7, I'm just looking at common problems that the LS7 has, and I'm just seeing, like, it's funny because, like you said, they all have the same problems. It's like the list of LS7, valve guide wear loading on.
LS7 does have valve guide wear. That's the only LS I know that really has it.
Valve spring issues causing valves to drop. Oil pump issues leading to low oil pressure.
I've never seen an oil pump issue out of one.
PCV systems causing oil consumption. That was on the LS3 also. And also the timing chain tensioner causing failing the timing chain to make noise.
See, I just never have seen that, and I've worked on a lot of LS7s, LS3s.
But in my perfect world, I think I would take the 6.0 and with what money I had left, and of course we've talked about doing this, and I think it's a great idea to try to build budget LSs. But with the money I would have left over from cheaping out on the 6.0, I'd go with an eBay turbo kit, or even Brian Tooley turbos are starting to get way more affordable than
$1,000 for a decent, like 870 something mil turbo. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, that's another hot take. I understand why people get turbo kits, but man, it just, like, if you're a fabricator, and maybe I'm just being biased because I'm a fabricator, but man, it just seems too easy to throw together a turbo kit. Like, it just seems
no, I wouldn't argue that.
I don't know, man. It just seems like it's so expensive to buy a turbo kit for cars. I get it. You do take a lot less of a headache, and planning and everything. But from what I've heard, a lot of these turbo kits, it's hard to find one that's plug and play. You end up having to modify them quite a bit.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
So it's like you're basically just buying the hardware, and you're having to do the brain power yourself. And a lot of times, you buy a cheap turbo kit, the instructions are horrible.
Yeah, you just gotta kind of figure it out. Like,
figure it out.
Here's what I got. How do I make it fit?
But that's what I would do. I would get a iron block 6.0, maybe bore it out, but and throw the eBay turbo on it, dude. That's what we'd do, and then we'd run that 6L80 till that thing's seen all neutrals.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about tier 3, which is, money isn't an option. So you got two options at this point. Are you NA or are you power adder?
Yeah,
and either way, I would say LS7 and fix, the common issues with the heads. And I would keep the titanium rods, get a forged piston, because all you need is a decent set of heads, a good cam kit, like a good spec'd one, like a blueprinted setup. And you're going to be making depending on, it really depends on the cam because there are some crazy LS7 cams, but you're gonna be making knocking on 700 at the wheel, no problem.
LSs are just power machines. Like,
Yeah, like if you just do the big displacement route, it's easy to make NA power.
you want to talk about big displacement? What about LS9?
Well, it's 6.2 liter. It's pretty much a LS3 with see, this is the one that I don't know because do you do LS9 or do you do like a C5R block, right? Which
Yeah.
C5R blocks go for like 10 grand alone, but and they also have vastly different. It's hard to get torque specs and stuff for them. I know someone who's done it, and it's harder to do than you think.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not like a mass production engine, so you gotta get fasteners special from ARP or whoever. You gotta find the guy who built it and designed it, and you gotta talk to him. They're like, "Hey, go through your notes, buddy. Get me them torque specs."
I'm reading that the LS9 has a lot of the problems that the LS7 has with the valve spring failure, oil pump issues, PCV system failing.
Yeah, I don't know what. I haven't looked at LS9 heads because I never had any. The only one I ever touched had PRCs on it, so
LS7 heads are the popular heads that everybody goes with, aren't they?
What do you mean?
I thought that was the popular thing to go with. If you're staying stock LS heads, getting a set of LS7 heads.
Well, it's got to fit.
Right,
but it's got a bigger valve, so it can hit. If you got too small of a bore block, it will hit the side of the cylinder.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
That and the 243 heads. The 243 heads
are like the go-to.
That's like the double
cathedral
hump of the LS3, yeah.
That and LS3 heads, those are the double humps.
Those are the double humps.
And then you got your BTR Trek Norris. That's 3/4 race cam.
Yep. Pretty much.
But yeah, let's say money's no option and you want to go boosted. See, here's the thing with boost in the LS. You don't gotta go stroker. People making 2,000 horsepower out of a 370 cubic inch LS. Like that's LS3 is 376. So I mean, it's literally like 6.1 liters, 6 liters displacement. They're making that power out of. So really, at that point, you're wanting to get a nice blueprinted setup. If you don't, because let's face it, we're not tuners, right? I'm not gonna. If I'm trying to make, an old Camaro big tire, small tire drag car, make big power, I'm gonna have Brian Toohey or someone spec me out a cam for my application, or even a whole engine if they would. I don't know if Brian Toohey does that, but that's what you're gonna do.
Sure
you're not gonna spec it out yourself. You're gonna talk to him because he's the expert, right? Or you're gonna talk to a tuner because it's just a lot easier. Like, you can go through the hassle, but it's just a lot easier to find someone who has been in this for a long time. And, I'm more like an installer. I'm not someone who's spec'd out stuff. But you can buy shelf parts and, with adequate knowledge, make a good setup. And it's something to be proud of, I think, too. If you do it all yourself, you're like, hey, I did this on my own. That's something to be proud of. But if you're really trying to be competitive, go talk to someone who's been doing it like Brian Toohey. So that's what I would do if money was no option. You got other options too. You can go like really big displacement aftermarket block. Like LSX block. I've never really dealt with them much. I know they're different on like cam journal sizes and other things. So I don't know. I might stay away from that a little bit from my inexperience.
That's immediately what I was going to switch to is LSX blocks for boost. I mean, they just the oiling system for them, like under high loads, like that's exactly what you want whenever you're making boost.
Yeah.
And I'm reading here that they have a special bore that increases cylinder wall strength. I mean, it's just that.
Oh, is it called a Siamese bore?
Yep, Siamese bore.
Yeah, that's how big block Chevys are.
I mean, that's the main thing you want is the strength in those cylinders for that boost, because there is nothing that'll crack a block like boost. Too much pressure has to go somewhere. It makes cracks. It finds ways out.
Heat boost makes heat. and that can kill something quick.
I mean, the LS3 also isn't, like I said, if money's not an option, you're not sticking with that LS3. But LS3, whenever it comes to boost, I mean, from factory, they have a pretty strong bottom end. Especially,
Yeah, Gen 4.
LS3, L92, and LSA. Because they have forged
Well,
internals, the
well,
LS9
LSA
does.
actually has thicker rods too, so if you can find
Right.
an LSA block, that's even nicer.
LSA, LS9 come forged internals from the factory. They also have
No,
high-flowing cinder.
LSA only has forged crank.
I'm reading forged internals, but they might have just summarized it.
That's just forged crank. It don't have
Okay.
forged rod or piston. They're weak pistons.
And it also says they have high flowing cylinder heads. So what cylinder head do the LSA and LS9 have on them?
They're different, and they have more bracing too compared to the LS3 head. I don't know what they flow though. I know they're same valve size. Actually, I'll tell you one thing I don't like about the LSA heads is the intake valve is a lot heavier, like significantly more heavier. Like if I think a LS3 intake valve is like 78 grams, and LSA, if I'm not mistaken, is like 115, 120. So you're gonna be running into more valve float with a LSA.
Yeah, and to somebody that doesn't know much, I mean that you don't think that amount of like grams and that small of weight, but whenever you're rotating it,
Well,
like 7,000
yeah, I'm about to say
RPM,
if you're spinning it hard, you better watch that.
every little thing is so crucial. And what about boosting? Like you said, an LS7, like if you wanted to really ball out with that large displacement.
Boost LS7 is mint. I mean, you're gonna make 1,000 horsepower, no problem.
Yeah, and I mean, you got that strong block with a 6-bolt main. Like, that thing ain't breaking unless you're like really
forged main
abusing it.
caps, titanium rods. So they take titanium is just so nice because it's lighter than aluminum, and stronger. So it's less rotating mass, which is a lot better. Like that, I can't tell you how much alone that is. That is so nice. It's so much less strain on your crank.
So, what would you boost the LS7 versus the like a LT engine, like a LT4, like LT4, LT1?
Well,
Because I mean, you got the
LT1s
direct
don't have the
injection.
nicer internals, so
Okay, we'll
definitely
just
not
say
LT1.
LT4.
So, like, we're talking stock for stock?
Yeah,
Oh, LT4 all the way.
that direct injection makes such a big difference.
Nah,
Oh, really?
it's the fact that the LT4 has nicer piston from factory for boost, and
Oh, really?
higher cylinder temps. It just plays a little nicer, a little more forgiving.
Does the LS7 also have oil squirters, or is that just a LT?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
LSA does too.
Okay, so you're still getting that same cooling effect.
Yeah, I don't know how much that actually makes a difference. I've never known.
Well,
It
a lot of
also
people block
lubes
them off.
it lubes your wrist pin too.
Right. And that's very crucial, whenever you're making like high RPM.
That's something I don't see a whole lot of oil from what I understand. Like it sees oil, but like not as much as like an oil squirter really helps that.
A lot of people delete them for some reason.
Well, it just depends on what you're doing.
I mean, if you're stroking it, it's obviously going to be in the way.
Well, you can clearance.
Or relocate. Well, relocating probably not be an option.
Yeah, I'm about to figure out personally, whether I'm keeping mine or not.
Oh, see, yeah, and you're 416.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I think I would. I mean, I don't know. At LS7, I would have an NA LS7 if I just had all the money in the world. Busby's car is just like a pinnacle of what I want in LS.
Well, his was a blueprinted setup.
Yeah, that's weird. I've heard good and bad things about Blueprint. Very, very weird.
No, not blueprint. Like blueprinted, like tested and tried.
Oh, I got you. Somebody like mocked it up.
Yeah, like it's all this. Like someone has balanced multiple of these. Like it's all done. Like
Overkill.
Who am I thinking of? Smetting Performance is who I think of when I think of like a blueprinted setup. They sell their smetting rods, smetting crank. I don't know if they do pistons or not, but they go in, they balance it all, and it's like a blueprinted setup. That's their setup. It's blueprinted. They just keep knocking them out, selling them to people. They've sold hundreds of them. They just work. You can throw it in any LS, it works.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too because it's simple. It's not a lot of headache. It's the same thing, so it works.
If you
Like
ever want to build it
it's really
again,
that's really a great way to do it.
yeah. Well, I guess that wraps up our cars topic. Let's go ahead and throw it right into our gaming topic. So I want to talk a little bit about Ark ASA, Ark Survival Ascended. Obviously, Ark was a very big part of what I liked doing in a video game, and of course, we played it a lot together. And I kind of want to get into why we haven't delved into ASA quite yet. I mean, I have very, very few hours on that game, and you haven't even purchased it yet.
No, I have not.
I kind of want to do a deep dive into where ASA is now in regards to what where the developers are, what problems are still in the game, what is better about the game. Because I mean, you kind of expect a lot out of it. They want $40 for this game. It better not just be a reskin, but it's kind of the common criticism that the game's getting right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm looking on the Steam page right now, and it's mixed reviews.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever gonna shake that. Mixed reviews is just God, it's bad. I guess I can get into some of the good things about the game, and we can kind of just break them down. They definitely redid the building like that. They made it so much better. Everything snaps nice and clean now. You can rotate stuff. It's no more like kind of guesswork on where something's going to go.
Yeah.
That's nice. And along with that, which this is a little bit unrealistic, and you can kind of love it or hate it. I could go either way. But as far as the generators goes and everything that needs power, you no longer need the power lines. It's all proxy to the generator. Which kind of sucked because
I kind of like that. It was messy.
Yeah, but it did give you so much enjoyment if you did such a clean job.
Yeah,
like I'd run that wire
like
right flush with the floor. Yeah. They did the same thing for water irrigation. It's proxy too. It's like you just kind of put a thing on the wall, and if it's close to it, whatever. That definitely takes away with some of the realism. But I understand it did get super tedious at the time, especially if you're really far away from water.
Yeah, just seeing in recent announcements, I don't know if I'm seeing stuff about cross-platform mods. I didn't even know the game was cross-platform, so that is pretty cool.
Yeah. They did revamp the character customization too, which is a lot of fun, but I wish that wasn't their main marketing tactic, because I was really happy with how the character customization was at the time. I mean, they did make it more ridiculous, which is awesome, but man, I wish they would have advertised just something different other than that, because it seemed like one of the bigger things they were kind of hyping over, other than it being on Uni 5.
Man, looking at, you gotta have an SSD to even play the game, it says.
Oh, I'm getting to all that. Speaking of customization, they added way more dye if you're into that. And along with that came a bunch of they added a bunch of new berries to the game. Kind of weird.
Huh.
Oh, and here's another thing that kind of shocked me, which kind of sucks. I think it sucks. I'm not a big fan. They removed movement speed. So you can no longer upgrade movement speed on your character or your dino,
Man.
none of that. I know, there wasn't nothing better than being just a little bit faster than your buddy and being able to outrun him whenever a raptor's after both of you at the start. That also, to make it a little bit more realistic, they added it to where the underwater teams, you can't upgrade their oxygen anymore.
Wow.
And this is something that you kind of griped about with Ark Survival Evolved, is the dang supply drops half the time wasn't worth going for.
They aren't.
They increased that, it's just about an ascendant item is in almost every supply drop now.
Okay.
Another thing that they changed was they made it to where, you know how dinos will start to show blood and scratches and everything if as you get farther along in the fight, closer to death, visual damage.
Yeah.
They added that to everything basically. So armor, rocks, resources, everything shows damage now whenever you attack it and or harvest. This was a big issue with everybody. They apparently made the hit registration way, way, way better.
Yeah, I definitely was getting that got old.
That got old.
Dude, I know my aim is good. Like I just can't stand when it's like I see it hit, like I see a dart hit something and it doesn't even, aggro it. Like, yeah, let's say I'm taking my first shot at like an RG or something, and I know I'm shooting the dang thing. I see arrows sticking at it or a dart, and it's just like it don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, the guy who was doing the breakdown that I watched, he even said, yeah, I no longer have to compensate for desync whenever I aim at creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
A big thing for me, I'm a big farmer based guy. They finally added it where both the dung beetle and the oviraptor can collect their resources while on wander. So the dung beetle automatically pick up poop, and the oviraptor automatically pick up eggs, which is so nice. They should have had that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Pick that up and feed it or put it in its inventory.
Yeah, it was so annoying. Like, it's so tedious. Like, it's a farming dino. Farm for me. Don't make me do the farming. Other than that, I mean, obviously the water looks much better. If you're into that, everything visually looks way, way better. I heard a few of the creature sounds were changed, which is kind of, I don't know, something about the nostalgia of how the creature sounded
I can think
originally.
of one. I hope it did.
Oh, yeah, the turtle. It's like Freddy Fazbear.
Yeah.
So, as far as the bad goes, of course, the servers, they did get somewhat fixed from what I've heard. But the main thing that, of course, we wanted to get to was the graphics requirements.
Golly.
And what I'm finding is that you almost have to be on a 40 series card or better to run it. The kind of what I'm seeing, the kind of bread and butter.
And probably not no 4060.
No. From what I'm seeing, the kind of the bread and butter that runs it is a 4090, and that has like the AI generated frames and the DLSS 3.
Yeah.
That's kind of a must for to run that game well. And even then, I was watching a video with somebody on a 4090 Ti, and he was like flying around the world in God mode, and he was still having frame drop.
A 4090 Ti is, the 3090 Ti, right? Everyone's like, oh
Yeah.
my god, that's amazing.
Yeah.
The 4090 Ti is a 48% increase from that.
Wow. Is it even worth it at that point? Like a 4090 is like a $700 card, isn't it?
No, it's like $1,800.
Oh my god. That's insane. For a 40% increase.
Dude, that's a lot.
Still, that's a lot of money.
A 3090 is like $1,000. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I feel like that's about right for the 3090.
That's why I bought my pre-built. I already had one in it. Mine's a 3060, but still.
The 60 is like the lowest tier besides a 50, which they
out of a 30 series.
It goes up to all the way up to 90, and 80 is like your kind of like everyone wants that or nicer, really.
Yeah. One of the things that seems to be the most irking to ARC players right now is the crash issues. And not only that, but apparently everybody's been having corruption issues with their character, their worlds, like having to reload saves because of the corruption. Like that would get on my nerves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, you spend all that time working on your world, like 4 or 5 hours, and then like all gone, like all that progress is gone.
Goodbye.
Pretty much. You've just wasted your whole time.
So 3090 Founders Edition goes for $13.69. And
$13.69.
Yeah, and a 4090 Founders Edition goes for $21.39.
Jeez. Yeah, graphics cards are expensive. I mean, they did go down a little bit, but still, golly.
They're going down.
Yeah, they are going down. They're not what they used to be back in the crypto mining sphere. That was horrible. Getting back on Arc, the big problem I've been hearing is the servers. Like, apparently, in the very, very beginning, people could go God mode super easily, and they were basically just cheating everything into the world.
Well, yeah, I already have a problem with multiplayer on Arc anyways, really.
It, it just,
It seems like it's just hard to get into if you don't have a lot of spare time.
and I really want to like Ark. I love Ark. It was one of my favorite games. And it just seems like for it to be a game that is a direct follow up to a game that's already out, it should be so much better. And for Ark ASA to be in early access, that just blows my mind.
It's literally just Arc remastered, and Arc was in early access the whole time.
Reskin too. I mean, it is
It's remastered. That's exactly what that is.
and I feel like the only reason they're doing this is because Arc 2 is like already kind of looking shaky for most players.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it.
Like, especially like how it doesn't sound like it's going to be your typical sandbox survival game like Arc always was. It sounds like they're going to be trying to change it too much. And for them to charge $40 for a game that is just a reskin of a game, it's crazy. I don't know. It just seems like pathetic.
I mean, I don't know. I think avoiding it really would be one of the best options.
Like the amount of people who are saying like do not buy on the Steam page, it's just it should go to show. And these are people who have several hours in the game. Like it's not people that just hopped on, couldn't load it, and hopped right off. I mean, I'm looking at a review here that's got 500 hours on, and he's saying avoid at all costs. Like the developers are here to take your money.
And I think he's got his money's worth out of it.
Yeah, here's a player with 1,000 hours on saying do not play. Like. It just sucks because I really expected so much out of ASA. I really wanted it to be just like the ultimate like Arc on Uni 5, but it being unplayable for people who don't have like, $1,000 graphics card or greater, it really sucks, man. And I could really see why people are sticking behind and still playing Arc Survival Evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point I would rather play Survival Evolved. Maybe they'll open servers back up for it.
Man, that'd be great, but I feel like they wouldn't just so they can keep their sales on ASA. That's really unfortunate.
We'll see. I mean, only time's going to tell.
Yeah. But that's really all I had. I just wanted to touch on this briefly, kind of get our gaming topic in here at the very end.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a playthrough once I get my new graphics card and I can see how, I feel like even then I'm not going to run it too good. And that's with the 3090 is a 24 gigabyte card. The one I'm getting is a 24 gigabyte. It's AMD, but, it's like the in-between of a 3080 and a 3090. So it's literally like the second best card on the market right now. And I don't know if it's going to run it good.
I have processor issues on that game, but I can still run it. It's just not happy with it.
What processor are you running?
i5, basically. It's a Ryzen 5. It's a Ryzen 5600.
5600?
Huh?
13th gen 5600?
I'm not sure, actually. I just know it's a Ryzen 5 5600. It's not anything special. It's definitely
I think you can go into Windows and find it somehow.
It's definitely the worst version of the graphics or the processor.
I wish I remembered how to do that. Yeah, there you go. Just go to settings.
It doesn't say what gen it is. It just says it's a 5500G.
Where? Are you in settings and then system?
And about.
You go to about, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say what generation it is.
What's it say?
3.9 gigahertz.
What's it say next to it? All of it.
AMD Ryzen 5 5600G with
Radeon. Yours isn't
on.
that Intel. Yours is AMD.
Yeah, that's why I say Ryzen 5.
Oh, I misunderstood. My bad.
No, you're good.
Ryzen 5 5600. Yeah, that's pretty lower tier. Mine is a Ryzen 7 7800. X3D 4.2 gigahertz.
Yeah, that X3D makes a big difference in those processors.
Still on that old graphics card
2060
though.
Super.
Yeah, she putting in that
2070
work.
Super. Yeah.
2060.
Oh, okay, I got it right. All right, well, that's all we have for you guys. With that being said, we will throw it to an outro, and we will catch you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as we did. If you did, be sure to go visit our social medias. Definitely hit up our TikTok and our Instagram. We have a lot of fun interacting with you guys outside of the show. And if you want to keep up with us, definitely follow us on there. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one.